Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're taking a shortcut, maybe the ultimate shortcut, into a concept that's often seen as either really sacred or kind of scandalous channeling.
Yeah, and our sources define it pretty broadly. It's about accessing, let's say, higher level information or non-local consciousness, stuff that isn't stuck in our usual time and space.
But you're right, it's got this history, this polarization. For ages, if you said you were talking to beings or getting wisdom outside the official texts, well, you could be in trouble.
Oh, absolutely. Associated with dark arts, heresy, you name it, you risk being completely cast out.
Yet at the same time, you've got these really ancient traditions all over the world where the channeler was actually revered.
Exactly. They were the seers, the way showers, the oracles, bringing back important messages, often about unity, compassion, healing, things the community needed.
Think about spirit shamanism.
Right. It was a core practice in many cultures. Certain people were expected to connect with ancestors or other kinds of beings to get guidance for everyone. It was functional, not necessarily something to be afraid of.
And even today, looking at modern examples, it's pretty diverse. Our sources bring up Sheila Gillette, for instance.
Right. She does direct voice channeling for Theo. They're described as a collective of 12 archangels.
And Theo's message, or a big part of it, is always, don't get hung up on me, the messenger. Focus on the actual message. Love, transformation.
Yeah, the information itself. And then you have someone like Daryl Anka channeling Bashar.
Who identifies as an extraterrestrial, right?
Yeah.
Close to non-physical.
Exactly. And Daryl just calls himself a translation device.
Yeah.
He sees it as facilitating this very detailed telepathic contact.
So different sources, angelic, ET, whatever, but the human conduit seems to work in a, well, pretty similar way.
It points to a common underlying mechanism, it seems.
Okay, so if we're receiving information, where is it coming from? What's the architecture here? Where does all this data live?
Well, the sources consistently point to something like a universal mind or source, cosmic consciousness. You hear different names, but the idea is this central hub where everything flows, where all information gathers.
And this isn't a new idea, is it?
Not at all. It goes back millennia. Hermetic philosophy had nous. Vedic philosophy talks about Akasha.
Ah, the Akashic records.
Uh,
That term pops up a lot, often thanks to Madame Blavatsky in the West, right?
yeah, she popularized it around 1877. Akasha is seen as this ethereal substance, non-physical, and it records everything, every event, thought, interaction, potential, supposedly preserved forever.
Okay, so if it's not a literal library up in the clouds with dusty books,
Mm.
how is this information actually stored? That linear image is hard to shake.
That's the first hurdle, yeah. It's not out there somewhere. The records, as they call them, are held within the soul.
Within the soul.
Yeah, the soul is eternal, they say, and it permeates every cell of your body, your earth suit, as some sources playfully call it.
Wow, okay. That changes things. If the whole record past, potential futures, everything is stored inside me. How do I access that without just, tapping into my own hopes or fears, my own psychology?
That is the absolute core challenge, and the answer seems to be frequency. It all comes down to frequency.
Okay.
All information is technically right here, right now, because everything exists simultaneously outside of linear time. Accessing it means you have to match the specific frequency of that piece of wisdom or that event.
So if my frequency is high, clear.
You tap into that source. If your frequency is chaotic, maybe fear-based, you just get, well, static, your own internal noise, your projections.
Which brings us straight to the idea of the higher self.
Mhm.
This seems key to finding that higher frequency. How should we think about the difference between, say, my everyday self and this higher self?
The higher self or oversoul, think of it as the bigger, non-physical part of your consciousness. The sources say it's the essence that created us.
So not like a separate superior being judging me from above.
No, not superior. It's just the full you, the non-localized version, the sum total of your soul's entire experience. Our physical mind, our ego, that's just an extension, really. Specialized for dealing with life here in the third dimension.
There's a really interesting, almost paradoxical idea from the shamanic view in the sources. It suggests that our shadow self, the bits we don't like or push down, is actually the higher self trying to get our attention.
Exactly. It flips the script. The shadow isn't something bad to be eliminated. It's highlighting where you still need liberation. It's showing you the emotional patterns or wounds that are keeping your frequency low.
Because the higher self exists outside of time.
Right. So it sees the trauma not as something terrifying to be relived, but as the lesson, the very thing you chose to experience in order to evolve. That's a tough pill to swallow emotionally, for sure.
Okay, so if it's all about frequency, how do we actually tune in? What's the mechanism? The radio analogy comes up a lot.
Yeah, the universe works in waves of vibration. Channeling needs attunement. You're dialing that radio, trying to get rid of the static and lock onto the station.
Or like Wi-Fi.
That works too. Think of your phone connecting to a Wi-Fi network. The information network is vast, it's out there, it's available. But your device, your body, your consciousness, needs to be tuned correctly to receive the signal clearly. You're the channel, the translation device, like Darryl Anka said.
What surprised me in the sources is where they say the main receiver is. Logically, you'd think the brain, right? The processor.
Seems logical.
But they consistently point to the heart. Why the heart?
Well, think of it as the seat of the soul. Gary Zukav talks about this, and many ancient traditions too. The mind, the ego, its primary job is survival, analysis, linear processing.
Which means when it's stressed or chaotic.
Exactly. It creates tons of static, fear, worry, judgment that just blocks the signal.
But the heart, it bypasses that.
The idea is the heart is inherently non-judgmental. It's permeable. It can allow other realities in because its function is just about flow, circulation, life. Like blood-carrying nutrients, the heart can carry the soul's wisdom through your awareness.
So we're not trying to, like, kill the ego.
Because we
Need it, right?
definitely need it for navigating daily life. The key isn't getting rid of it, but shifting its role, preventing it from being the gatekeeper for everything.
How do we do that? Move control from the analyzing, maybe fearful mind to the receptive heart.
It's about redirecting focus. Consciously. Over and over, the mind just defaults to being in charge. By centering your focus in the heart, and especially by engaging in the prerequisites the sources mention, you can stop the ego from automatically censoring or blocking the flow.
And those prerequisites are surprisingly simple, aren't they?
Across the board.
Yeah, boils down to 3 things usually. Presence, practice, and patience. The 3 Ps.
Presence. Being right here, now.
Exactly. Not lost in past regrets or future worries. Those are low-frequency states. They create static. Practice means, well, treating it like any skill, like learning an instrument. Consistency matters. You can't just try it when you're desperate and expect a clear connection.
Builds capacity. And patience. Maybe the hardest one. For sure. Patience acknowledges that the universe, or source, operates on its own timing, not necessarily yours. You might tune the dial perfectly, but the broadcast might only come through when the conditions are right for your growth, your evolution. These 3 things together build that vibrational foundation for a clearer connection.
Okay, let's talk about the actual experience. Channeling is clearly a huge umbrella term. The sources mention people getting bogged down in terminology debates.
Oh, yeah. Mediumship versus trans-channeling versus possession. People can get really stuck on the labels. But the underlying mechanism, the sources suggest, is the same. It's resonance.
Like using the same tech for different programs.
Kind of. Whether you're trying to remote view somewhere or talk to a deceased relative or get creative inspiration, you're using resonance. You're just dialing into a different vibrational address, so to speak.
And we're apparently all born with the receivers, the clair senses.
That's the idea. We have these built-in ways to process nonlinear information. Clairvoyance, clear seeing, often symbolic, like visions.
To clairaudience.
Clear hearing, internal voices, sometimes external sounding, and claircognizance, clear knowing.
That last one, claircognizance, is often called the hallmark of the oracle, isn't it?
It often is, yeah. It's when information just lands, fully formed. You just know it. There's no need for a visual or auditory translation step. It can be cognitive, structured, almost like math or geometry sometimes. And then the channeler's job is to translate that knowing into linear language or writing.
Which brings us to different styles. There's trans-channeling.
Right. That's where the channeler goes into a really deep state, almost like vacating their consciousness, becoming just the microphone, the pure conduit for whatever entity is coming through.
Edgar Cayce is the famous example, the sleeping prophet.
Probably the most influential, yeah. He'd go into this deep trance and suddenly deliver complex medical advice or prophecies way outside his normal knowledge.
And then there's mental mediumship, where the person stays more aware.
Exactly. In mental mediumship, the channeler is receiving, translating, and often speaking or writing it all down at the same time. Automatic writing is a classic form of this. The hand moves quickly, trying to get the mental download onto paper before the conscious mind jumps in too much.
We should also remember the sources say channeling happens in everyday creativity, too.
Oh, absolutely. Artists, musicians, writers. when they're totally in the zone, that flow state, when
Yeah.
the mind goes quiet and it feels like the work is just coming through them, that's a high-frequency channeling state, accessing the universal mind for creative juice.
So we've covered the spiritual side, the mechanics. What about when science tries to look at this? Places like IONS, the Institute of Noetic Sciences, they've studied trans-channeling.
They have. And the big scientific question, the skeptical challenge, always comes back to, is this really an outside energy or entity? Or is the person just personifying some incredibly sophisticated part of their own deeper psyche, maybe through a kind of dissociative state?
So skeptics might say these different personalities are just complex psychological projections. What do the sources offer against that?
Well, interestingly, scientists who've actually witnessed these sessions, especially deep trance channeling, often admit the transformation is, while profound, doesn't quite fit neatly into typical dissociative categories.
How so?
The channeled entities often have knowledge, languages, accents, mannerisms, even consistent worldviews that are radically different from the channeler's everyday self. It's hard to fake that consistently.
So science can't prove an external entity exists.
Right. Proof is tricky, but the consensus among many researchers who've studied it closely is that the channeler is undeniably accessing and expressing something far beyond their own personal experience or knowledge base. It strongly suggests we're connected to something much, much bigger.
Let's talk about the boundary. This idea of the veil comes up like a planetary net around our dimension. Why would that even exist?
The sources suggest it's functional, part of the design. It's a metaphor, mostly like a bride's veil, maybe. It allows us to have this deep experience of separation, individuality, which seems necessary for the kind of intense learning we do here in this density.
But there's also this idea that it's thinning now.
Yeah, that's a common theme. A collective awakening is happening, and part of that is this veil becoming more permeable.
So if the veil is there,
Mhm.
people have always tried ways to peek through it, right?
Yeah.
Using tools, pendulums, tarot cards, the Ouija board.
Right. And the really crucial point the sources make is that the tools themselves aren't magic. They're permission slips.
Permission slips.
Yeah. The tool gives your conscious, critical, maybe fearful mind an excuse to step aside for a moment. It helps you get into the right vibrational state, the receptive state needed for communication. Eventually, the idea is you realize you are the tool and the physical object isn't needed anymore.
That puts the Ouija board controversy in a different light. It got such a bad rap, mostly from movies like The Exorcist, as this evil portal.
It did. But its history is more complex. It was patented as a game, yeah, back in 1891. But then, surprisingly, it was reportedly used in founding a whole religion, Taoism, in Vietnam in the 1920s.
Wow.
It shows that intention and belief really shape the experience. If you go into using any tool with fear, you lower your vibration, and you're likely to connect only with lower frequency, maybe fear-based energies or experiences, your own fear reflected back.
For some people, the veil gets pierced much more dramatically through near-death experiences, NDEs. These stories are powerful.
They really are. Some of the most compelling evidence for a non-physical reality. The common threads are striking the white light, seeing guides or beings of light, often described as angels, but maybe without wings.
And the feeling.
An overwhelming, immense love, something that completely changes how they see life afterwards. And they often receive guidance, really profound guidance,
What kind of guidance?
sometimes incredibly specific. There's one documented case where someone was given this complex set of instructions, like step by step on how to heal a chronic respiratory problem they had.
And did they?
They followed the instructions exactly and recovered, completely baffled their doctors. That level of specific, practical, helpful knowledge isn't uncommon in NDE reports.
And the lasting impact is key, isn't it? The NDE acts like this intense catalyst.
Totally. It often just switches on psychic or channeling abilities overnight because the person knows from direct experience that the spirit world is real. It makes accessing it later feel much clearer, much more natural.
Okay, one last area. What about lost souls? Ghosts. People report seeing figures near battlefields, places of trauma. Are they actually trapped?
The sources suggest trapped isn't quite the right word. Usually it's not like a physical prison.
So what keeps them seemingly stuck?
It's more about vibrational attachment. If a soul leaves the body carrying intense trauma or really strong unfinished business, or even just overwhelming love and grief for those left behind, they can remain in a lower vibrational state.
Close to Earth.
Yeah, in what's sometimes called the lower astral realm. They're still free, technically, but their own heavy beliefs or emotions keep their frequency low, making it hard to move on to higher realms. But spirit guides are apparently always working with them, helping raise that vibration, helping them release those attachments. Hashtag tag outro.
Wow. Okay, so we've gone from cosmic hard drives to the heart as a receiver through scientific skepticism, NDEs. What's the big takeaway? The collective invitation from all these sources.
I think the core message is really one of encouragement, deep encouragement. Don't give up on your own unique gifts, your innate connection. It's not about ego, not about being special. It's more like a calling to serve, just by being you, operating from your highest frequency. Those gifts are already there, kind of embedded in your heart's energy.
And the idea is, as more people wake up to this, the labels channeling, spirit guide, they might just fade away.
That's the prediction, yeah. It'll become less weird, more like a common language. A natural understanding that we're all multidimensional, always in dialogue with source energy, whether we realize it or not. The veils are thinning, the resonance is getting easier to feel.
So the key is just allowing it. Allowing yourself to drop into that resonant state. Presence, practice, patience, and receive whatever information is there to elevate things.
Exactly, to elevate yourself and by extension, the collective. So maybe the final thought for you listening is to trust yourself. Trust yourself enough to start exploring those dimensions of reality that really no one else can ever know or explore in quite the same way you can. What unique wisdom might you bring forward if you allow your perception to expand just a little?